The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as Maya Chun adjusted her worn running shoes for the third time that morning. Around her, the elite training facility buzzed with the sounds of ambition, weights clanging, stopwatches clicking, and the rhythmic thud of feet against treadmills. But none of that mattered to Maya as she stared at the notice board, her name conspicuously absent from the list of athletes selected for the regional championship qualifiers. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Coach Thompson stood nearby, clipboard in hand, his weathered face showing no emotion as he watched the other swimmers celebrate their selections. When Maya approached him, her voice barely above a whisper, he didn't even look up from his notes. "Coach, I don't understand. My times have been improving every week. I've been here since 5 a.m. every day for the past 6 months." Thompson finally raised his eyes, and Maya saw something there that made her stomach drop. Not anger or disappointment, but something worse, pity. "Maya, you're technically sound. Your form is textbook perfect. Your dedication is admirable." He paused, tapping his pen against the clipboard. "But you lack the killer instinct. Swimming at this level isn't just about technique or showing up. It's about being willing to destroy your competition, to push past every limit, to want victory so badly that you'll sacrifice everything for it." The words hit Maya like a physical blow. She had heard whispers from other swimmers about her being too nice, about how she would congratulate competitors even when they beat her by hundredths of a second. But hearing it from Thompson, the man who had coached 3 Olympic medalists, made it feel like a verdict on her entire athletic career. "I train harder than anyone here," Maya said, her voice trembling slightly. "I've dropped 4 seconds in the 200-meter freestyle this year alone." "Training hard isn't enough," Thompson replied, his tone gentle but firm. "Sarah Martinez trains hard too, but when she's in the water, she's a predator. She sees her lane opponents as obstacles to be eliminated. You see them as fellow athletes sharing the pool." He shook his head. "That's admirable as a person, Maya, but it's why you'll never make it to the next level." Maya walked home that evening through the quiet suburban streets of Riverside, her gym bag feeling heavier with each step. The conversation with Thompson replayed in her mind like a broken record. She had started swimming at age 7, not because she dreamed of Olympic glory, but because her younger brother David had been diagnosed with a rare muscle condition that made walking difficult. Their parents had enrolled both children in swimming lessons, hoping the low-impact exercise would help David build strength while giving Maya a healthy outlet for her boundless energy. The local community center pool had become their second home. Maya would spend hours in the chlorinated water, not just swimming her own laps, but staying after practice to help David with his physical therapy exercises. She had learned to read the subtle signs of his fatigue, knowing when to push him just a little further and when to let him rest. Swimming had never been about beating others for Maya. It had been about helping someone she loved become stronger. But somewhere along the way, her natural talent had been noticed. Coach Williams at the community center had recommended her to the regional training program, and before she knew it, Maya was training alongside swimmers who had been groomed for competition since childhood. The transition had been jarring. Where her old teammates had celebrated personal improvements and supported each other through setbacks, this new environment was built on rankings, cut times, and the constant pressure to be faster than everyone else. Thompson's training philosophy was legendary in swimming circles. His athletes were known for their ruthless competitiveness, their ability to maintain composure under pressure, and their willingness to swim through pain that would stop lesser competitors. He had a wall of newspaper clippings in his office, documenting victories by swimmers who had learned to embrace what he called the championship mindset. To Thompson, swimming wasn't a sport. It was warfare conducted in chlorinated water. Maya had tried to adapt to this mentality. She had studied videos of legendary swimmers like Katie Ledecky and Caleb Dressel, analyzing not just their technique, but their mental approach to racing. She had read books on sports psychology, practiced visualization techniques, and even worked with a mental performance coach who specialized in helping athletes develop competitive aggression. But despite all her efforts, something fundamental seemed to be missing. During practice sessions, Maya would watch her teammates transform in the water. Sarah Martinez, Thompson's star pupil, would arrive at the pool each morning with a focused intensity that never wavered. She would study the workout posted on the whiteboard like a general planning a battle, calculating exactly how much effort to expend in each set to maximize her training gains. When other swimmers struggled with difficult intervals, Sarah would offer no encouragement or sympathy. If anything, she seemed to draw energy from others suffering, using their weakness as motivation to push herself harder. The other elite swimmers in the program had similar attitudes. They would analyze each other's splits obsessively, looking for signs of weakness or improvement that might affect their own standing in the training group. Friendships were conditional and strategic, based on mutual benefit rather than genuine connection. When someone had a bad race or missed an important time standard, the others would offer perfunctory sympathy while privately celebrating one less competitor to worry about. Maya found this environment emotionally exhausting. She had been raised to believe that sports were about personal growth, teamwork, and mutual respect. Her parents had taught her that true strength came from lifting others up, not tearing them down. But in Thompson's program, these values seemed to be viewed as weaknesses that would prevent her from reaching her full potential. The training itself was brutal by any standard. Thompson's swimmers logged over 60,000 meters per week in the pool, supplemented by dry land workouts that pushed them to their physical limits. Maya had adapted to the physical demands better than most, her body responding well to the high-volume training. Her stroke technique was considered among the best in the program, refined through thousands of hours of deliberate practice and constant attention to detail. But Thompson's assessment of her killer instinct wasn't based on her ability to handle physical pain or technical challenges. It was about her response to competition itself. During time trials and test sets, Maya would swim fast and race hard, but Thompson observed that she never seemed to truly hate losing. When she touched the wall in second or third place, she would immediately look to congratulate the winner, asking about their strategy or commenting on how well they had swum. She would analyze her own performance objectively, identifying areas for improvement without the emotional devastation that Thompson believed was necessary for true competitive fire. Thompson had seen this pattern many times before. Athletes who possessed all the physical tools for success, but lacked the psychological ruthlessness that separated champions from also-rans. In his experience, this deficiency was usually insurmountable. The mental skills required for elite competition had to be cultivated from an early age, and attempting to develop them in older athletes was like trying to teach a new language to someone who had already passed the critical learning period. Maya's teammates had begun to sense Thompson's assessment of her potential. Comments that had once been encouraging became subtly condescending. "Great technique, Maya," Sarah would say after a particularly good practice set, "but you know technique only takes you so far." Others would make jokes about Maya's nice girl reputation, suggesting that she was too concerned with being liked to ever be truly feared by her competition. The psychological pressure was beginning to affect Maya's performance. She found herself second-guessing her race strategies, wondering if she should be more aggressive in her positioning or more ruthless in her tactics. She experimented with different mental approaches, trying to manufacture the kind of competitive anger that seemed to fuel her teammates. But these efforts felt forced and unnatural, like trying to wear clothes that didn't fit properly. Thompson noticed the changes in Maya's swimming, but not in the way she had hoped. Her times began to plateau and occasionally even regress. As she struggled to reconcile her natural personality with the competitive mindset she was trying to adopt. During a particularly difficult practice session, Thompson pulled her aside for another conversation that would prove to be even more devastating than their first. "Maya, I can see you're trying to change your approach," he said, his voice carrying a note of frustration. "But you can't fake this kind of thing. Either you have the killer instinct or you don't. You're fighting against your own nature, and it's making you a worse swimmer, not a better one." He gestured toward the pool where Sarah was completing a punishing set of 100-meter repeats, her face set in grim determination as she chased the pace clock. "Look at Sarah." Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. She doesn't have to think about being competitive. It's who she is. When she sees someone ahead of her, every fiber of her being demands that she catch them and destroy them. That's not something you can learn from a book or develop through practice. It's either in your DNA or it isn't. Maya felt tears welling up in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall in front of Thompson. "So what are you saying? That I should quit?" "I'm saying you need to be realistic about your goals," Thompson replied. "You're a good swimmer, Maya. You could probably make your college team, maybe even earn a scholarship to a decent school. But you're never going to be a champion at this level. You don't have the psychological makeup for it." The conversation effectively ended Maya's dreams of elite competition. Within a week, she had been moved to the secondary training group, working with athletes who were considered developmental prospects rather than serious medal contenders. The change was presented as an opportunity for her to take on more leadership responsibilities with less experienced swimmers, but everyone understood what it really meant. Maya's family tried to be supportive, but the disappointment was obvious. Her parents had invested thousands of dollars in her swimming career, driving her to practices and competitions throughout her teenage years. Her younger brother David, now stronger thanks to years of aquatic therapy, had been her biggest supporter, attending every meet and cheering loudly from the stands despite his own physical limitations. "Maybe Thompson is wrong," David said one evening as they sat by the community center pool where Maya had started swimming. "Maybe there's a different way to be competitive that he just doesn't understand." Maya appreciated his optimism, but she had begun to accept that Thompson's assessment might be correct. She had watched enough elite competition to recognize that the best swimmers possessed something she seemed to lack: a willingness to view their opponents as enemies to be defeated, rather than fellow athletes to be respected. They could channel anger, frustration, and even hatred into fuel for their performances, swimming faster when they were threatened or challenged. The secondary training group was a different world from the elite program. The athletes were talented, but lacked the single-minded focus that characterized Thompson's top swimmers. They were more social, more supportive of each other, and generally more focused on personal improvement than on beating their teammates. Maya found the environment more comfortable, but she also recognized that it represented a significant step down in terms of competitive level. Coach Anderson, who ran the secondary group, had a completely different philosophy from Thompson. A former college swimmer who had competed successfully, but never at the international level, Anderson believed that swimming should be enjoyable and personally fulfilling. He emphasized technique, consistency, and gradual improvement over the intense psychological pressure that defined elite training. "Not everyone needs to be a killer in the water," Anderson told Maya during one of their first conversations. "Some of the most successful people I know in swimming are coaches, officials, and administrators who found ways to stay involved in the sport without needing to be the fastest person in the pool." Maya appreciated Anderson's perspective, but she couldn't shake the feeling that she was settling for less than her potential. Her times were still competitive at the regional level, and she continued to improve under Anderson's guidance. But She knew that without access to the elite training environment and competition opportunities, her chances of making a significant impact in the sport were limited. The next several months passed in a blur of routine training and local competitions. Maya won most of her races at the regional level, but the victories felt hollow compared to the dreams she had once harbored. She began to consider Thompson's suggestion about focusing on college swimming, researching programs that might offer her a scholarship while providing a more balanced approach to athletics and academics. During this period, Maya also began working part-time at the community center where she had learned to swim, helping to coach younger swimmers and assist with adaptive programs for athletes with disabilities. The work was rewarding in ways that her own training had never been. She found herself naturally gifted at identifying technical problems and communicating solutions in ways that young swimmers could understand and implement. Working with disabled swimmers reminded Maya of her original motivation for swimming. She helped children with various physical challenges experience the joy and freedom of movement in the water, watching them gain confidence and strength through consistent practice. These swimmers faced obstacles that made Maya's own challenges seem trivial by comparison, yet they approached their training with enthusiasm and determination that put many elite athletes to shame. One swimmer in particular captured Maya's attention. Rebecca Torres was a 15-year-old who had been born with a congenital condition that affected the development of her left arm. She had started swimming as physical therapy, but had developed a passion for competition despite the obvious challenges posed by her physical differences. Rebecca's technique was unorthodox by necessity, but her determination was absolute. "I know I'll never be the fastest swimmer in the pool," Rebecca told Maya after a particularly challenging practice session. "But I can be the swimmer who improves the most, who works the hardest, who never gives up. That has to count for something." Maya was struck by Rebecca's words. The young swimmer had found a way to be competitive that didn't require viewing others as enemies or celebrating their failures. She was competing primarily against herself, using the presence of others to motivate her own improvement rather than focusing on defeating them. This realization began to shift Maya's perspective on her own swimming career. She had been so focused on trying to develop the killer instinct that Thompson demanded that she had lost sight of what had originally motivated her to excel in the pool. Her natural competitive drive had always been about pushing herself to be better, about refusing to accept limitations, about finding ways to overcome obstacles through persistence and intelligence rather than aggression. Maya began to wonder if Thompson's definition of killer instinct was too narrow. Perhaps there were different ways to be competitive that didn't require the psychological brutality that he advocated. She started to research successful athletes who had achieved excellence through different mental approaches, studying swimmers like Janet Evans, who had dominated distance events through relentless technique and tactical intelligence rather than raw aggression. The more Maya learned about different competitive philosophies, the more she began to question whether she should accept Thompson's verdict about her potential. She had made significant improvements in her swimming under his program. Despite the psychological challenges, her technique was superior to most swimmers at her level, and her work ethic was undeniable. Perhaps the problem wasn't that she lacked competitive fire, but that she had been trying to express it in ways that were fundamentally incompatible with her personality. Maya decided to approach her swimming career differently. Instead of trying to manufacture hatred for her competitors, she would focus on channeling her natural desire to help others into motivation for her own improvement. She would swim not to destroy others, but to demonstrate that success could be achieved through different means. She would compete not against other swimmers, but against the limitations that others had placed on her potential. This shift in mindset began to affect Maya's training immediately. She found herself more motivated during practice sessions, more focused during technique work, and more confident in her ability to continue improving. Anderson noticed the change and began to increase the difficulty of her training sets, pushing her toward times that would be competitive at higher levels. But Maya's new approach would face its ultimate test sooner than anyone expected. A last-minute injury to one of Thompson's elite swimmers would create an unexpected opportunity, and Maya would find herself in a position to prove that killer instinct could take many different forms. The opportunity came during the state championship preliminaries when Sarah Martinez suffered a severe shoulder injury during warm-ups. The injury was serious enough to require immediate medical attention, and it became clear that Sarah would not be able to compete in her signature event, the 200-meter freestyle. Thompson was faced with a dilemma. He could either scratch the event entirely or find a replacement swimmer who could represent his program creditably. Maya had been planning to compete in the same meet as part of Anderson's secondary group, but her entry times were fast enough to warrant consideration as Sarah's replacement. Anderson approached Thompson with the suggestion, arguing that Maya deserved a chance to prove herself at the highest level. Thompson was initially reluctant, remembering his previous assessments of Maya's competitive limitations, but the lack of alternatives eventually convinced him to agree. The news that Maya would be swimming in the elite session spread quickly through the swimming community. Many observers saw it as a charitable gesture by Thompson, an opportunity for a dedicated swimmer to experience high-level competition without any real expectation of success. Others questioned whether Maya was mentally prepared for the pressure that would come with competing against the region's best swimmers. Maya herself was nervous but determined. She had been training consistently under Anderson's guidance, and her times had continued to improve. More importantly, she had developed a clearer understanding of her own competitive identity. She was ready to prove that Thompson's definition of killer instinct wasn't the only path to success. The day of the preliminary races arrived with all the pageantry and pressure that characterized major swimming competitions. The aquatic center was packed with spectators, coaches, and athletes from across the region. Maya could feel the weight of expectation and skepticism as she prepared for her race, but she also felt something else, a quiet confidence that she had never experienced before. As Maya walked onto the pool deck for her event, she saw Thompson watching from the coaching area. Their eyes met briefly, and she could see the doubt in his expression. He had agreed to let her swim, but he clearly didn't expect her to succeed. That doubt, rather than undermining her confidence, seemed to crystallize her determination. The swimmers were called to the blocks for the 200-meter freestyle, and Maya took her position in lane 4. To her left was Jennifer Walsh, the defending state champion and heavy favorite to win. To her right was Amanda Chen, a rising star who had been recruited by several major college programs. Maya had never competed against swimmers of this caliber before, but she felt ready. As Maya settled into her starting position, she thought about all the swimmers she had helped at the community center, all the improvements she had made through patient persistence, and all the doubts she had overcome to reach this moment. She wasn't swimming to destroy her competition. She was swimming to prove that there were many different ways to be a champion. The starter's commands echoed through the aquatic center, and Maya prepared to dive into the water that would determine whether Thompson's assessment of her killer instinct had been correct, or whether she possessed a different kind of competitive fire that was just as powerful. The electronic beep of the starting system cut through the charged atmosphere of the aquatic center, and 8 swimmers launched themselves into the water with explosive power. Maya's dive was textbook perfect, her body cutting through the surface with minimal splash, as she began the opening 50 meters of what would prove to be the most important race of her life. The pool erupted in a cacophony of cheering spectators, clicking stopwatches, and the rhythmic splash of powerful strokes cutting through chlorinated water. Maya emerged from her underwater dolphin kick in 3rd place, exactly where she had planned to position herself for the tactical race she had been visualizing for weeks. Jennifer Walsh had taken the early lead as expected, her aggressive start setting a pace that would challenge anyone hoping to stay within striking distance. Maya settled into her race rhythm, her stroke count precise and her breathing pattern steady. She had studied video footage of Walsh's racing strategy and knew that the defending champion tended to build her lead gradually through the first 150 meters before unleashing a devastating final 50 that had demoralized countless competitors. Maya's plan was different, based on her understanding of her own strengths and the tactical lessons she had learned from years of helping other swimmers overcome seemingly insurmountable challenges. As the swimmers approached the 100-meter mark, Maya noticed something that the spectators and even most of the coaches had missed. Walsh's stroke rate was higher than usual, suggesting that she was working harder than normal to maintain her lead. The pace was honest, but it was also unsustainable. For someone who typically relied on negative splitting to dominate the back half of her races, Maya filed this information away while maintaining her own controlled rhythm. Amanda Chun, swimming in the lane to Maya's right, was exactly where everyone expected her to be. The recruited athlete had positioned herself in second-place content to let Walsh set the pace while conserving energy for what promised to be a tactical battle over the final 100 meters. Chun's technique was flawless, her stroke long and efficient, but Maya could sense a tension in her competitor's swimming that suggested she was already feeling the pressure of the fast early pace. Thompson watched from the coaching area with growing confusion. He had expected Maya to be overwhelmed by the speed of the race, to fall behind early and struggle to maintain contact with the leaders. Instead, she appeared to be exactly where she wanted to be, swimming with a composure that seemed inconsistent with her supposed lack of competitive instinct. Her stroke technique remained perfect despite the demanding pace, and her positioning suggested a tactical awareness that Thompson had not previously recognized. The first 100 meters split flashed on the scoreboard, confirming what Maya had suspected about the aggressive early pace. Walsh had gone off faster than her usual strategy, possibly trying to break the field early and avoid the kind of close finish that had characterized several of her recent races. The time was fast enough to be concerning for swimmers who had planned to rely on closing speed, but Maya felt confident in her preparation. During the countless hours she had spent analyzing race footage and working with Anderson on tactical scenarios, Maya had developed a race plan that was uniquely suited to her strengths. While other swimmers focused on trying to match Walsh's raw speed, Maya had identified patterns in the champion's racing that suggested vulnerabilities that could be exploited through intelligent positioning and precise timing. The second 50 meters unfolded exactly as Maya had anticipated. Walsh maintained her lead but began to show subtle signs of the effort required to sustain her early pace. Her stroke rate remained elevated, and Maya could see the slight increase in splash that indicated the defending champion was beginning to work harder to maintain her speed. Chun continued to shadow Walsh from second place, but her own stroke was beginning to show the strain of trying to match a pace that was faster than her optimal racing strategy. Maya, meanwhile, felt stronger as the race progressed. Her aerobic conditioning, developed through months of high-volume training under Anderson's guidance, was allowing her to maintain her target pace without the accumulation of lactate that was beginning to affect her competitors. More importantly, her tactical positioning had put her in the perfect place to capitalize on any mistakes or tactical errors made by the swimmers ahead of her. The psychological dynamics of the race were becoming clear to Maya as they approached the 150-meter mark. Walsh was swimming like someone who felt the pressure of maintaining her reputation as the dominant swimmer in the event. Chun was swimming like someone who was afraid of making a mistake that would cost her a chance at victory. Maya was swimming like someone who had nothing to lose and everything to gain. As the swimmers made the turn for the final 50 meters, the real race began. Walsh's lead had shrunk to less than half a body length, and Chun had begun to show signs of the aggressive racing style that had earned her college recruitment. But Maya was also moving, her stroke rate increasing smoothly as she began to implement the closing strategy that she and Anderson had practiced hundreds of times. The crowd noise reached a crescendo as the three leaders separated themselves from the rest of the field. Maya could hear individual voices shouting encouragement, including David's distinctive cheer from somewhere in the stands. But she could also hear something else, the sound of her own breathing, steady and controlled, in stark contrast to the labored gasps she could hear from the swimmers in the lanes beside her. Maya's closing 50 meters was a masterpiece of tactical racing. Instead of trying to match the frantic stroke rates of her competitors, she focused on maintaining her technical precision while gradually increasing her speed. Her stroke count remained consistent, but each stroke was generating more power as she engaged. The core strength and underwater skills that had been developed through years of technique-focused training. With 25 meters remaining, Maya pulled even with Chun and was rapidly closing the gap on Walsh. The defending champion could sense the challenge and responded with a desperate increase in effort, but her stroke was beginning to break down under the pressure. Maya could see Walsh's technique deteriorating, her catch becoming less effective and her body position showing signs of the fatigue that comes from swimming above optimal pace for too long. The final 10 meters became a battle of wills as much as speed. Walsh was swimming on reputation and pride, refusing to accept that her dominance in the event might be coming to an end. Chun was swimming with the desperation of someone who knew that this might be her best chance to achieve a breakthrough performance. Maya was swimming with the quiet confidence that comes from perfect preparation and tactical execution. Maya's final stroke was perfectly timed, her hand hitting the touchpad with the precision that had been drilled into her through thousands of hours of practice. The electronic timing system registered the touches with digital accuracy, and the results appeared on the scoreboard with the kind of dramatic timing that made swimming such a compelling sport. Maya had won by 0.03 of a second. The aquatic center erupted in a combination of cheers and stunned silence. Maya's victory was so unexpected that many spectators needed several seconds to process what they had witnessed. The swimmer who had been dismissed as lacking killer instinct had just defeated the defending state champion in a race that would be remembered as one of the most tactically brilliant performances in recent state championship history. Maya floated in the water for a moment, allowing the reality of her victory to sink in. She had not just won a race. She had proven that Thompson's narrow definition of competitive instinct was fundamentally flawed. She had demonstrated that intelligence, preparation, and tactical awareness could be just as effective as raw aggression in the most pressure-packed situations. Walsh was the first to congratulate her, swimming over to Maya's lane with the grace that had characterized her championship career. Despite the disappointment of her unexpected defeat, the defending champion recognized that she had been outswum by someone who had simply raced smarter and better on this particular day. "That was incredible," Walsh said, her voice carrying genuine admiration. "I've never been out-tactical like that before. You swam a perfect race." Chun was equally gracious, acknowledging that Maya had achieved something that most swimmers never managed: a breakthrough performance at exactly the right moment. The recruited athlete had swum a personal best time, but had been outperformed by someone who had elevated her racing to a level that transcended her previous achievements. As Maya climbed out of the pool, she was immediately surrounded by coaches, officials, and swimmers who wanted to understand what they had just witnessed. Anderson was beaming with pride, having recognized that Maya's victory represented validation of his coaching philosophy and belief in alternative approaches to competitive excellence. Thompson approached more slowly, his expression showing a mixture of confusion and grudging respect. The veteran coach had been forced to confront the possibility that his understanding of competitive psychology was incomplete, that there were swimmers who could achieve excellence through pathways he had not previously recognized or valued. "I don't understand how you did that," Thompson said when he finally reached Maya. You were swimming against the fastest swimmers in the state, and you looked like you were in complete control the entire time. Maya looked at Thompson with a calmness that surprised even herself. I was in control, she replied. I spent months studying every aspect of this race, understanding my competitors' strengths and weaknesses, and developing a strategy that would give me the best chance to succeed. I didn't need to hate them to beat them. I just needed to be smarter than them. The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of several college coaches who had been watching the preliminary session. Maya's victory had immediately elevated her status as a recruitment prospect, and coaches who had never heard her name before were now interested in learning more about her training background and competitive potential. Over the following hours, Maya found herself at the center of attention in ways she had never experienced before. Swimming journalists wanted to interview her about her tactical approach to the race. College coaches wanted to discuss her academic interests and long-term competitive goals. Other swimmers wanted to understand the training methods that had enabled her breakthrough performance. But the most meaningful conversation came with David, who had made his way down to the pool deck despite the crowds and chaos. Maya's younger brother had tears in his eyes as he embraced her, understanding better than anyone else what this victory represented. You did it, he said simply. You proved that there are different ways to be a champion. Maya nodded, feeling the weight of what she had accomplished beginning to settle in. She had not just won a race. She had challenged fundamental assumptions about what it meant to be competitive at the highest levels of sport. Her victory would force coaches, athletes, and observers to reconsider their understanding of the psychological qualities required for championship-level performance. As the preliminary session concluded and the swimmers began to prepare for the evening finals, Maya realized that her victory had created an entirely new set of challenges. She would no longer be able to compete as an underdog or surprise anyone. With her tactical approach, in the finals, she would be marked as a legitimate threat, and her competitors would have the opportunity to adjust their strategies accordingly. The hours between the preliminary and final sessions passed in a blur of media interviews, coaching discussions, and strategic planning. Maya found herself working with Anderson to anticipate how Walsh and the other finalists might modify their approaches in response to the morning's results. They studied video footage of the preliminary race, identifying moments where Maya's tactical decisions had created advantages and considering how those same decisions might play out differently. In the evening, Thompson made an unexpected visit to Maya's warm-up area, approaching her with a different demeanor than she had ever seen from him before. The veteran coach appeared genuinely curious about her mental approach to racing, asking detailed questions about her pre-race preparation and in-race decision-making process. I've been coaching for 25 years, Thompson said, and I've never seen a swimmer execute a tactical race plan with that level of precision under that kind of pressure. I may have been wrong about what killer instinct looks like. Maya appreciated Thompson's acknowledgement, but she was already focused on the evening's final. She understood that her preliminary victory had proven that her approach could work, but she also knew that championship-level swimming required the ability to perform consistently at the highest level. One great race was impressive. Back-to-back great races would be definitive. The evening session brought an entirely different atmosphere to the aquatic center. The stands were packed with spectators who had heard about the morning's upset and wanted to witness what promised to be one of the most competitive finals in state championship history. The energy was electric, with swimmers, coaches, and fans all understanding that they were about to witness something special. Maya's warm-up routine was methodical and focused, incorporating the visualization techniques she had developed with Anderson while maintaining the technical precision that had become her trademark. She could feel the attention of the crowd and the pressure of expectations, but she also felt the calm confidence that came from knowing she had prepared for this moment as thoroughly as possible. The ready room before the final was a study in contrasting approaches to pressure management. Walsh sat quietly, her focus internal, as she prepared to attempt a comeback that would restore her reputation as the dominant swimmer in the event. Chun appeared more animated, talking through her race strategy with her coach and working to maintain the energy that had served her well in previous big competitions. Maya chose a middle approach, acknowledging the other swimmers while maintaining her own mental preparation routine. She had learned from working with disabled swimmers that confidence came not from trying to psych out competitors, but from absolute faith in one's own preparation and capabilities. She felt ready not because she believed she was superior to her competitors, but because she knew she had done everything possible to give herself the best chance to succeed. The call room protocol played out with the ritualistic precision that characterized major swimming competitions. Officials reviewed the competition rules, swimmers were introduced to the timing judges, and the final administrative details were handled with the kind of attention to detail that reflected the importance of the moment. As the swimmers were escorted to the competition pool, Maya could hear the crowd noise building to a crescendo. The atmosphere was charged with anticipation, and she could sense that everyone present understood they were about to witness a race that would be remembered for years to come. The introduction of the finalists was met with enthusiastic applause, but Maya noticed that the crowd's reaction to her name was particularly strong. Word of her tactical masterpiece in the preliminary had spread throughout the swimming community, and many spectators were genuinely curious to see whether she could reproduce that performance under the even greater pressure of the championship final. Maya took her position behind the starting block, going through her final preparation routine with the same attention to detail that characterized every aspect of her approach to competition. She adjusted her goggles, checked her starting position, and ran through her race plan one final time. She was ready to prove that her morning victory had not been a fluke, that her approach to competition was not just viable, but potentially superior to the traditional methods that had long dominated elite swimming. The starter's whistle brought the swimmers to the blocks, and Maya settled into her starting position with the confidence that came from months of preparation and the knowledge that she had already proven her tactical approach could work at the Kolfor's highest level. The aquatic center fell silent except for the hum of the ventilation system and the subtle sounds of swimmers making final adjustments to their starting positions. The electronic tone that would begin the race was still seconds away, but Maya was already visualizing her perfect execution of the tactical masterpiece that would either cement her reputation as a breakthrough champion or consign her preliminary victory to the status of a memorable but ultimately meaningless upset. As the starter began the sequence of commands that would launch the most important race of her career, Maya felt the kind of calm focus that Thompson had never recognized, but that represented the truest expression of her competitive instinct. She was ready to prove that killer instinct could manifest in many different forms, and that the most dangerous competitors were often those who were underestimated by coaches who understood only one way to win. The starter's voice cut through the electric atmosphere of the packed aquatic center like a blade through silk. Swimmers, step up. Maya positioned herself behind lane 4, her heart beating steadily but powerfully as she surveyed the field of athletes who represented the absolute pinnacle of state-level competition. The preliminary upset had changed everything, transforming her from an overlooked participant into the marked swimmer that everyone would be watching. Jennifer Walsh stood behind lane 5, her expression unreadable but her body language suggesting a competitor who had spent the entire afternoon analyzing what had gone wrong in the morning session. The defending champion had not lost a 200-meter freestyle at the state level in over 2 years, and her coaching staff had undoubtedly spent every available minute developing a strategy to reclaim her dominance in the event that had defined her high school career. Amanda Chun occupied lane 3, her recruitment by a major college program lending additional weight to her presence in the final. Chun had improved her personal best time in the preliminary despite finishing second, suggesting that the competitive environment was elevating everyone's performance to levels that would have been unthinkable just months earlier. Her coach stood behind the starting area, making final tactical adjustments that would hopefully give his swimmer the edge needed to claim the state title. The other finalists represented a collection of the region's most accomplished swimmers, each bringing their own tactical approaches and competitive histories to a race that had already generated more interest than any state championship final in recent memory. Maya recognized several swimmers who had dominated regional competitions throughout the season, athletes who possessed the kind of raw speed and competitive experience that typically decided championship races. Maya's own preparation had been methodical and comprehensive, incorporating every lesson she had learned from her unexpected morning victory, while accounting for the tactical adjustments that her competitors would inevitably make. Anderson had helped her analyze video footage of the preliminary race, identifying moments where her decisions had created advantages and anticipating how those same situations might develop differently in the final. The warm-up pool had been a laboratory of strategic planning, with coaches and swimmers engaging in the kind of detailed tactical discussions that characterized the highest levels of competitive swimming. Maya had observed Walsh's preparation routine, noting subtle changes in the defending champion's approach that suggested a more aggressive race strategy. Chun's warm-up had been similarly modified, with additional speed work that indicated she planned to challenge for the lead from the opening strokes. Thompson watched from the coach-in area with an expression that reflected his ongoing struggle to understand what he had witnessed in the preliminary session. The veteran coach had built his reputation on his ability to identify and develop the psychological traits that produced championship performances. But Maya's victory had challenged fundamental assumptions about the nature of competitive instinct that had guided his coaching philosophy for decades. The technical officials completed their final preparations with the precision that characterized major swimming competitions. Timing judges took their positions, stroke and turn officials reviewed their assigned lanes, and the electronic timing system underwent its final calibration checks. Every detail was managed with the kind of attention that reflected the importance of the moment and the understanding that the results would determine state championships and influence college recruitment decisions. Maya's visualization routine incorporated lessons from months of working with athletes who had overcome seemingly insurmountable obstacles through intelligence, preparation, and tactical excellence. She pictured herself executing the race plan that she and Anderson had refined through countless practice sessions, seeing each turn, each stroke, and each tactical decision with the clarity that came from thorough preparation. The crowd noise reached a crescendo as the swimmers were called to their marks. 8 athletes representing years of training, sacrifice, and determination preparing to compete in a race that would be remembered as one of the most tactically sophisticated finals in state championship history. Maya could hear individual voices in the stands, including David's unmistakable encouragement and the more subdued, but equally supportive cheers from the community center swimmers who had driven hours to witness her championship opportunity. "Take your mark." The starter's command brought immediate silence to the aquatic center. Thousands of spectators holding their breath as 8 swimmers settled into starting positions that had been refined through years of technical work and competitive experience. Maya felt the familiar texture of the starting block beneath her fingers, her body coiled with the potential energy that would soon propel her into the most important race of her life. The electronic starting signal launched 8 swimmers into the water with explosive power, but Maya's dive was different from the morning session. She had adjusted her entry angle slightly, aiming for a trajectory that would position her perfectly for the underwater phase that had become such a crucial component of modern sprint swimming. Her dolphin kicks were crisp and powerful, generated by the core strength that Anderson had helped her develop through months of technical drilling. Maya emerged from her underwater phase in second place, exactly where she had planned to be for the tactical race that would unfold over the next minute and 40 seconds. Walsh had taken the early lead with a more aggressive start than she had shown in the preliminary, confirming Maya's suspicion that the defending champion would attempt to establish dominance from the opening strokes. But Maya's positioning was perfect for the race strategy she had developed. She was close enough to Walsh to respond to any tactical moves while maintaining enough separation from the chase pack to avoid the kind of tactical complications that could disrupt her rhythm. Chun was exactly where expected, having positioned herself to challenge Walsh's lead while conserving energy for what promised to be a devastating closing sprint. The first 50 meters unfolded with the kind of controlled aggression that characterized championship-level racing. Walsh's early pace was faster than her preliminary split, but not dramatically so, suggesting that she had learned from the morning's tactical mistakes while still attempting to assert her dominance. Maya's stroke count was exactly where she wanted it, her technique remaining precise despite the demanding pace set by the field. Maya's tactical awareness had been sharpened by months of studying race footage and working with Anderson to understand the subtle dynamics that determined the outcomes of close competitions. She could sense the positioning of every swimmer in the field, understanding how their relative speeds and tactical preferences would influence the development of the race over the remaining 150 meters. As they approached the 100-meter mark, Maya noticed something that would prove crucial to the race's outcome. Walsh's stroke rate was elevated compared to her typical racing pattern, suggesting that the defending champion was working harder than optimal to maintain her lead. This was exactly the kind of tactical opportunity that Maya had been preparing to exploit, a moment where superior race management could overcome raw speed advantages. The 100-meter split confirmed Maya's tactical analysis. Walsh had gone out faster than her usual strategy, potentially compromising her ability to maintain her closing speed over the final 100 meters. Chun was swimming aggressively, but within her normal tactical parameters, positioning herself for the kind of finishing kick that had characterized her most successful races throughout the season. Maya's own split was perfectly on target for the race plan she had developed with Anderson. Her aerobic conditioning was allowing her to maintain her target pace without the accumulation of lactate that would compromise her closing speed, while her tactical positioning had put her in the perfect place to capitalize on any mistakes made by the swimmers ahead of her. The crowd noise intensified as the swimmers made the turn at the 100-meter mark, with Maya's parents and brother cheering loudly from the stands while Thompson watched with growing amazement from the coaching area. The veteran coach was witnessing a level of tactical sophistication that challenged everything he thought he understood about competitive swimming at the high school level. The third 50 meters became a masterclass in race management and tactical positioning. Walsh maintained her lead, but began to show subtle signs of the effort required to sustain her aggressive early pace. Her stroke technique remained excellent, but Maya could detect the slight increase in splash and stroke rate that indicated the defending champion was beginning to work harder to maintain her speed. Chun responded to Walsh's tactics by moving into a position that would allow her to challenge for the lead over the final 50 meters. The recruited athlete's stroke was smooth and powerful, but Maya could sense that she was swimming at or near her maximum sustainable pace, leaving little room for a close-in kick that would be necessary to overcome Walsh's experience and tactical knowledge. Maya, meanwhile, felt stronger as the race progressed. Her stroke count remained consistent, but each stroke was generating more power as she began to implement the closing strategy that had been developed through months of specific preparation. Her breathing pattern was controlled and rhythmic, allowing her to maintain optimal oxygen delivery while monitoring the tactical situation developing around her. The 150-meter mark represented the beginning of the championship phase of the race, the point where tactical preparation would give way to raw competitive will and the kind of closing speed that separated champions from also-rans. Maya could feel the field beginning to separate as swimmers made their final moves, some attempting to respond to the pace while others began to fade under the pressure of the demanding rhythm. Walsh's lead had shrunk to less than half a body length, and Maya could sense that the defending champion was beginning to feel the pressure of maintaining her position against swimmers who had clearly prepared specifically to challenge her dominance. Chun was moving strongly but showed signs of the strain that came from swimming at the upper limits of her speed range for an extended period. Maya's tactical positioning was perfect as she entered the final 50 meters. She was close enough to the leaders to launch an attack while maintaining enough energy reserves to sustain a closing kick that would carry her through to the wall. Her stroke technique remained precise despite the accumulating fatigue, a testament to the thousands of hours of technical work that had prepared her for this moment. The final 50 meters became a battle between different tactical philosophies and competitive approaches. Walsh was swimming with the desperate determination of someone fighting to maintain a reputation built over years of dominance. Chun was swimming with the controlled aggression of someone who understood this might represent her best opportunity to achieve a breakthrough performance. Maya was swimming with the calm confidence that came from perfect preparation and tactical execution. Maya's move came with 30 meters remaining, a smooth increase in stroke rate that was barely perceptible to casual observers, but represented the culmination of months of specific training for this exact moment. Her stroke count increased by exactly 2 strokes per 50 meters, a change that had been practiced thousands of times and could be executed without conscious thought even under the extreme pressure of championship competition. The crowd erupted as Maya pulled even with Chun and began to close the gap on Walsh. The defending champion could sense the challenge and responded with an increase in effort that pushed her stroke technique to its limits. But Maya's closing speed was relentless, each stroke generating maximum propulsion while maintaining the technical precision that had become her trademark. With 15 meters remaining, Maya took the lead for the first time in the race. Her stroke was smooth and powerful, generated by the perfect coordination of technique and fitness that represented years of dedicated preparation. Walsh was matching her stroke for stroke, but the defending champion's technique was beginning to break down under the pressure of trying to respond to Maya's surge. The final 10 meters became a pure test of competitive will. Maya's stroke rate was at its peak, but her technique remained virtually perfect, each stroke generating maximum speed while maintaining the efficiency that would carry her to the wall. Walsh was swimming on pride and determination, refusing to accept that her reign as state champion might be coming to an end. Maya's final stroke was timed perfectly, her hand hitting the touchpad with the precision that had been drilled into her through thousands of hours of practice. The electronic timing system registered the touches with digital accuracy, and for a moment that seemed to last forever, the outcome remained uncertain as swimmers and spectators waited for the official results to appear on the scoreboard. The results appeared with the dramatic timing that made championship swimming such a compelling spectacle. Maya had won by 0.04 of a second, improving her preliminary time by nearly a full second in the process. Walsh had swum a lifetime best but finished second, while Chun claimed third with a performance that would secure her position as one of the top college recruits in the region. Maya floated in the water, allowing the magnitude of her achievement to register fully. She had not just won a state championship. She had done so by executing one of the most tactically sophisticated races in recent state championship history. Her victory represented validation of everything she and Anderson had worked toward, proof that intelligence and preparation could triumph over conventional approaches to competitive excellence. The aquatic center erupted in sustained applause as the reality of Maya's championship settled in. Swimming enthusiasts in the stands recognized that they had witnessed something special, a performance that challenged traditional assumptions about the psychological qualities required for championship-level success. Maya's approach to competition had proven that killer instinct could manifest in many different forms. Walsh was the first to congratulate her, swimming over to Maya's lane with the grace and sportsmanship that had characterized her championship career. Despite the disappointment of losing her title, the former champion recognized that she had been defeated by someone who had simply raced better on the most important day of the season. "That was incredible," Walsh said, genuine admiration evident in her voice. "I've never been outraced like that before. You swam the perfect tactical race, and you earned every bit of that victory." Chun was equally gracious in defeat, acknowledging that Maya had achieved something that few swimmers ever managed: back-to-back breakthrough performances when it mattered most. The recruited athlete had swum lifetime bests in both the preliminary and final sessions, but had been outperformed by someone who had elevated her, racing to a level that transcended previous achievements. As Maya climbed out of the pool, she was immediately surrounded by coaches, officials, and athletes who wanted to understand what they had witnessed. The victory had transformed her from a regional-level swimmer into a legitimate contender for national-level competition and college. Coaches who had never heard her name before the preliminary were now eager to discuss recruitment opportunities. Anderson was beaming with pride as he embraced his swimmer, understanding that Maya's championship represented validation of his coaching philosophy and belief in alternative approaches to competitive excellence. The victory had proven that there were many different paths to swimming success, that tactical intelligence could be just as valuable as raw physical ability in determining championship outcomes. Thompson approached slowly, his expression showing a mixture of amazement and professional curiosity. The veteran coach had been forced to confront the limitations of his understanding of competitive psychology, recognizing that his narrow definition of killer instinct had prevented him from appreciating swimmers who possessed different but equally valid approaches to excellence. "I owe you an apology," Thompson said when he reached Maya. "I was wrong about what it takes to be a champion. You've shown me that there are different ways to compete at the highest level, and I need to reconsider how I evaluate and develop athletes." Maya accepted Thompson's acknowledgement with the same grace she had shown throughout her swimming career. "Everyone has their own way of competing," she replied. "The key is finding the approach that works for your personality and strengths, then developing it to the highest possible level." The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of several national-level coaches who had been watching the championship session. Maya's tactical mastery had caught the attention of coaches who worked with swimmers competing at the highest levels of the sport, and they were eager to discuss the possibility of training relationships that could help her continue developing her unique competitive approach. But the most meaningful moment came when David made his way through the crowds to reach his sister. Maya's younger brother had tears streaming down his face as he embraced her, understanding better than anyone else what this championship represented. Maya's victory was not just about swimming fast. It was about proving that there were many different ways to achieve excellence, that strength could manifest in forms that were not always immediately recognizable. "You did it," David said, his voice choked with emotion. "You proved that your way of competing is just as valid as anyone else's. You showed everyone that being different doesn't mean being inferior." Maya nodded, feeling the full weight of what she had accomplished beginning to settle in. Her championship had implications that extended far beyond swimming, challenging assumptions about competition and success that affected athletes in every sport. She had demonstrated that tactical intelligence, preparation, and mental toughness could be just as effective as traditional forms of competitive aggression. The medal ceremony that followed was a celebration not just of Maya's individual achievement, but of the diversity of approaches that could lead to excellence in competitive swimming. As she stood on the top step of the podium, listening to the national anthem and feeling the weight of the gold medal around her neck, Maya reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. The path had not been easy or straightforward. She had faced skepticism from coaches who couldn't understand her competitive approach, dismissal from teammates who viewed her methods as inferior, and moments of self-doubt when she wondered whether Thompson's assessment of her limitations might be correct. But she had persevered, supported by coaches and family members who believed in alternative definitions of competitive excellence. Maya's championship had immediate and lasting effects on the swimming community. Coaches began to reconsider their evaluation methods, recognizing that swimmers who didn't fit traditional competitive profiles might still possess the qualities necessary for championship-level success. Athletes who had been overlooked or marginalized because of their personalities or competitive styles found new opportunities to develop their talents. The victory also had profound effects on Maya's own future. College coaches who specialized in developing tactical swimmers began recruiting her aggressively, recognizing that her unique approach to competition could be refined and developed at higher levels. She received scholarship offers from programs that valued intelligence and preparation as much as raw speed, opportunities that would allow her to continue pursuing excellence while obtaining a world-class education. But perhaps the most significant impact was on Maya herself. The championship had given her the confidence to trust her instincts and compete according to her own values, rather than trying to conform to others' expectations. She had learned that authentic competitive excellence came from developing her natural strengths rather than trying to adopt characteristics that were fundamentally incompatible with her personality. In the weeks following the championship, Maya continued training with Anderson while beginning to explore opportunities for higher-level competition. Her times continued to improve as her confidence grew, and she began to set goals that would have seemed impossible just months earlier. The swimmer who had been told she lacked killer instinct was now being courted by some of the most successful programs in college swimming. Maya also became involved in coaching younger swimmers, sharing the lessons she had learned about alternative approaches to competition. She worked particularly closely with athletes who had been told they weren't tough enough or aggressive enough for high-level swimming, helping them develop tactical approaches that capitalized on their unique strengths and personalities. The community center where Maya had learned to swim became a laboratory for developing swimmers who might not fit traditional competitive profiles. Under Maya and Anderson's guidance, the program began producing athletes who achieved success through intelligence, preparation, and tactical sophistication, rather than conventional competitive aggression. The approach attracted swimmers who had been discouraged by other programs, creating a supportive environment where different types of competitors could thrive. Maya's influence extended beyond swimming as her story spread throughout the broader athletic community. Coaches in other sports began to reconsider their assumptions about competitive psychology, recognizing that there might be athletes in their own programs who possessed untapped potential that had been overlooked because it didn't manifest in traditional ways. The championship had also strengthened Maya's family relationships, particularly with David, who had found validation for his own belief that strength could manifest in many different forms. Maya's success had proven that the qualities he had developed through his own challenges, persistence, intelligence, and tactical thinking, were just as valuable as the more obvious physical attributes that characterize traditional athletes. Thompson, meanwhile, began a process of self-reflection that would ultimately transform his coaching philosophy. He started working with sports psychologists to develop evaluation methods that could identify different types of competitive excellence, recognizing that his previous approach had been too narrow to capture the full spectrum of championship potential. The veteran coach also began reaching out to swimmers he had previously overlooked, offering them opportunities to train with modified approaches that were better suited to their personalities and competitive styles. Several of these athletes went on to achieve breakthrough performances, validating Thompson's evolved understanding of what it meant to possess killer instinct. Maya's championship race was analyzed extensively by swimming coaches and sports scientists who identified tactical elements that could be incorporated into training programs for other swimmers. Her approach to race strategy became a case study in how preparation and intelligence could overcome apparent physical disadvantages, influencing coaching methods throughout the swimming community. But for Maya herself, the most important outcome was the knowledge that she had remained true to her values while achieving the highest level of competitive success. She had proven that it was possible to compete with integrity, to respect opponents while defeating them, and to achieve excellence through methods that enhanced rather than compromised her character. As Maya prepared for the next phase of her swimming career, she carried with her the confidence that came from having proved her approach under the ultimate pressure. She knew that there would be new challenges and higher levels of competition ahead. But she also knew that she possessed the tools necessary to succeed: intelligence, preparation, tactical sophistication, and the kind of quiet competitive fire that Thompson had failed to recognize. The swimmer who had been told she lacked killer instinct had become a champion by proving that killer instinct could take many different forms. Her victory had challenged assumptions, changed minds, and opened doors for athletes who competed according to different, but equally valid competitive philosophies. Maya's story became an inspiration for athletes across all sports who had been told they weren't tough enough, aggressive enough, or competitive enough for elite-level success. She had demonstrated that there were many paths to excellence, that strength could manifest in unexpected ways, and that the most dangerous competitors were often those who were underestimated by coaches and opponents who understood only one way to win. The championship that had begun as an unlikely opportunity for an overlooked swimmer had evolved into something much more significant, a redefinition of what it meant to possess the killer instinct that separated champions from also-rans. Maya had proven that the deadliest competitors were not always the most obvious ones, and that true competitive excellence could emerge from the most unexpected sources when preparation met opportunity at exactly the right moment. The weeks following Maya's state championship victory transformed her life in ways she had never anticipated. The swimmer who had been dismissed as lacking competitive fire found herself at the center of a recruiting frenzy that attracted attention from some of the most prestigious swimming programs in the country. College coaches who had never heard her name before the championship were now calling Anderson daily, eager to discuss scholarship opportunities and training philosophies that could help Maya continue developing her unique approach to competition. Stanford University was among the first to reach out, their coaching staff having been impressed not just by Maya's championship performance, but by the tactical sophistication she had displayed throughout the state meet. The Cardinal program had a history of developing swimmers who combined technical excellence with strategic intelligence, and they saw Maya as a perfect fit for their approach to training and competition. The University of California at Berkeley followed closely behind, their coaches recognizing that Maya's breakthrough performance represented exactly the kind of competitive evolution they had been predicting would reshape elite swimming. The Golden Bears had built their recent success on identifying swimmers who possessed non-traditional competitive profiles, and Maya's championship had validated their belief that tactical intelligence could be just as valuable as raw physical ability. But the most intriguing opportunity came from an unexpected source: Dr. Sarah Morrison, a sports psychologist who worked with the United States Olympic Training Center, had been in attendance at the state championships as part of a research project studying competitive psychology in age group swimmers. Maya's performance had captured her attention not just for its tactical brilliance, but for what it revealed about alternative pathways to elite-level success. Dr. Morrison's research focused on identifying athletes who might possess championship potential despite not fitting traditional psychological profiles for competitive excellence. Her work had already influenced training methods at the Olympic level, helping coaches recognize and develop swimmers who might have been overlooked under conventional evaluation systems. Maya represents exactly the kind of athlete we need to understand better, Dr. Morrison explained during a lengthy phone conversation with Maya and her parents. Her championship performance suggests that there are forms of competitive instinct that we haven't fully recognized or developed. If we can understand what makes her approach so effective, we might be able to help other athletes achieve similar breakthroughs. The opportunity to participate in Dr. Morrison's research was compelling for several reasons. It would provide Maya with access to cutting-edge training methods and sports science resources while contributing to a body of knowledge that could help other athletes who had been underestimated or overlooked. The research program was based at the Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs, offering Maya the chance to train alongside some of the world's best swimmers while pursuing her college education through a partnership with nearby universities. Maya's decision-making process was complicated by the range of opportunities available to her. Each program offered distinct advantages, from Stanford's academic prestige to Berkeley's innovative training methods to the Olympic training centers, world-class facilities, and scientific resources. But perhaps most importantly, Maya wanted to ensure that whatever path she chose would allow her to continue developing as both an athlete and a person without compromising the values that had guided her throughout her swimming career. The recruitment process also provided Maya with insights into how dramatically her championship victory had changed perceptions within the swimming community. Coaches who had previously viewed her as a regional-level athlete with limited upside were now describing her as a swimmer with legitimate international potential. The tactical approach that had once been seen as a limitation was now being praised as a competitive advantage that could be particularly effective at higher levels of competition. Thompson, meanwhile, had undergone his own transformation in the weeks following Maya's championship. The veteran coach had begun working with Dr. Morrison to develop new evaluation methods that could identify swimmers who possessed non-traditional forms of competitive excellence. His collaboration with the sports psychologist represented a fundamental shift in his coaching philosophy, moving away from his previous emphasis on aggressive competitiveness toward a more nuanced understanding of what it meant to possess championship potential. Maya taught me that I had been looking at competition through too narrow a lens, Thompson admitted during a coaching clinic he organized to share lessons learned from Maya's breakthrough. I had convinced myself that there was only one way to compete at the highest level, and that belief prevented me from recognizing swimmers who possessed different but equally valid approaches to excellence. Thompson's evolved coaching philosophy began attracting swimmers who had been discouraged by other programs, athletes who possessed talent and dedication but didn't fit conventional competitive profiles. His training group became a laboratory for developing alternative approaches to competitive swimming, with Maya serving as a mentor and role model for younger swimmers who were learning to compete according to their own strengths and personalities. The impact of Maya's championship extended beyond her immediate training environment to influence coaching education and athlete development programs throughout the swimming community. Swimming coaching organizations began incorporating discussions of alternative competitive profiles into their certification courses, recognizing that the sport needed to become more inclusive of different types of athletes and competitive approaches. Maya herself became a sought-after speaker at coaching clinics and athlete development programs, sharing her experiences and insights with coaches and swimmers who were interested in understanding how tactical intelligence could be developed and applied in competitive situations. Her presentations focused not on promoting her specific approach as superior to others, but on encouraging coaches and athletes to identify and develop whatever competitive strengths they naturally possessed. The key isn't to try to become someone you're not, Maya would tell audiences of young swimmers. It's to understand who you are, what your strengths are, and how you can develop those strengths to their highest possible level. There are many different ways to be competitive, and the best approach is the one that feels authentic to your personality and values. Maya's influence on younger swimmers was particularly evident at the community center where she continued to coach part-time while considering her college options. Athletes who had previously struggled with confidence issues or felt intimidated by more aggressive competitors began to flourish under training approaches that emphasized preparation, tactical awareness, and technical excellence, rather than psychological intimidation. Rebecca Torres, the disabled swimmer who had originally inspired Maya to reconsider her own competitive approach, had made remarkable progress under Maya's guidance. Rebecca's times had improved dramatically as she learned to apply tactical principles that compensated for her physical limitations, and she had begun competing successfully against able-bodied swimmers in open competitions. Maya showed me that being different doesn't mean being inferior, Rebecca explained to a local newspaper reporter who was writing about the community center's success in developing non-traditional competitive swimmers. She taught me that I could use my intelligence and preparation to compete with anyone, regardless of physical advantages they might have. The success of swimmers like Rebecca validated Maya's belief that competitive excellence could emerge from the most unexpected sources when athletes were given appropriate guidance and support. The community center program began attracting swimmers from throughout the region, families seeking an alternative to the high-pressure, aggressive training environments that characterized many elite swimming programs. Maya's championship had also strengthened her relationship with David, who had found validation for his own approach to overcoming challenges through intelligence and persistence rather than conventional athletic ability. David had begun competing in Paralympic events, applying tactical principles that Maya had helped him develop to achieve success in the pool despite his physical limitations. The siblings' success had become a source of inspiration for their parents who recognized that their children had achieved something more significant than athletic accomplishment. Maya and David had proven that strength could manifest in many different forms, that success could be achieved through approaches that enhanced rather than compromised personal character, and that the most meaningful victories were often those that opened doors for others who faced similar challenges. As Maya weighed her college options, she found herself drawn to programs that shared her commitment to developing the whole person rather than just the athlete. The decision ultimately came down to a choice between pursuing immediate competitive success and contributing to a broader understanding of what it meant to excel in competitive environments. The University of California at Berkeley emerged as Maya's preferred destination, offering a combination of academic excellence, innovative training methods, and a coaching philosophy that valued tactical intelligence as highly as physical ability. The Golden Bears had built their recent success on identifying and developing swimmers who possessed non-traditional competitive profiles, and they saw Maya as a cornerstone recruit who could help validate their approach while inspiring other athletes to pursue excellence through alternative pathways. Berkeley's head coach, Dr. Jennifer Walsh, had been following Maya's career since the state championships and was convinced that her tactical approach could be even more effective at the college level, where competition was more sophisticated, and strategic considerations played a larger role in determining race outcomes. Dr. Walsh had spent years studying the tactical elements of elite swimming, and she believed that Maya possessed instincts and capabilities that could be developed into something truly special. Maya represents the future of competitive swimming, Dr. Walsh explained during Maya's campus visit. The sport is becoming more tactical and strategic at every level, and swimmers who can think their way through races will have significant advantages over those who rely purely on physical ability. Maya has already demonstrated that she can execute complex tactical plans under pressure, and we believe we can help her develop those skills to an even higher level. The Berkeley program also offered Maya the opportunity to work with Dr. Morrison on her ongoing research into alternative competitive profiles. The collaboration would allow Maya to contribute to a body of knowledge that could help other athletes while continuing to develop her own understanding of tactical competition. The research component was particularly appealing because it aligned with Maya's desire to use her success to benefit others who might be struggling with similar challenges. Maya's decision to attend Berkeley was announced at a press conference organized by the community center, with swimmers from throughout the region in attendance to celebrate her achievement and learn about the opportunities available to athletes who were willing to pursue excellence through non-traditional approaches. The event became a celebration not just of Maya's individual success, but of the diversity of paths that could lead to competitive achievement. Thompson was among those in attendance, having driven several hours to publicly acknowledge his role in Maya's journey and to apologize for his initial assessment of her competitive potential. The veteran coach's presence at the press conference represented a symbolic acknowledgement that the swimming community needed to become more inclusive of different types of athletes and competitive approaches. Maya taught me that my understanding of competitive psychology was incomplete, Thompson said during his remarks. She showed me that there are forms of killer instinct that I hadn't recognized, and her success has forced me to reconsider how I evaluate and develop athletes. I hope that other coaches can learn from my mistakes and avoid overlooking swimmers who might possess championship potential in non-traditional forms. The press conference also featured Dr. Morrison, who discussed the broader implications of Maya's success for understanding competitive psychology in swimming and other sports. Her research had already begun to influence training methods at the Olympic level, with coaches incorporating tactical development into their programs in ways that had not been previously considered. Maya's championship performance demonstrates that we need to expand our understanding of what it means to be competitive, Dr. Morrison explained to the assembled media and swimmers. Her success suggests that there are pathways to excellence that we haven't fully explored, and her willingness to participate in our research could help other athletes achieve similar breakthroughs. As Maya prepared for the transition to college swimming, she reflected on the journey that had brought her from a dismissed regional swimmer to a championship athlete who was reshaping understanding of competitive excellence. The path had not been easy or straightforward, requiring her to overcome skepticism, self-doubt, and the pressure to conform to competitive approaches that were fundamentally incompatible with her personality. But the challenges had also been the source of her greatest growth. Learning to compete according to her own values rather than others' expectations had given Maya confidence that extended far beyond swimming. She had discovered that authentic excellence required the courage to be different, the wisdom to understand her own strengths, and the persistence to develop those strengths despite others' skepticism. Maya's story had become an inspiration for athletes throughout the swimming community and beyond, proving that there were many different ways to achieve competitive success. Her championship had challenged assumptions, changed minds, and opened doors for athletes who might have been overlooked under traditional evaluation systems. As she looked toward the future, Maya carried with her the knowledge that her greatest victories were still ahead. The swimmer who had been told she lacked killer instinct had proven that competitive fire could manifest in many different forms, and she was ready to continue that journey at the highest levels of collegiate competition. The championship that had begun as an unexpected opportunity for an overlooked athlete had evolved into something much more significant, a redefinition of what it meant to possess the competitive instinct necessary for elite-level success. Maya had demonstrated that the most dangerous competitors were often those who were underestimated, and that true excellence emerged when preparation met opportunity at exactly the right moment. Her legacy would extend far beyond her own competitive achievements, inspiring future generations of athletes to pursue excellence through approaches that honored their authentic selves while pushing the boundaries of what was considered possible in competitive environments. Maya had proven that being different was not a limitation, but a potential source of strength, and that the most meaningful victories were those that opened doors for others to achieve their own breakthroughs. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.